late February, early March, when we didn't have a positive test, but we were basically just playing the waiting game. What was that like? And do you feel Iowa was ready when we did get our first positive test?
Yeah, so I was in a very different role than I am today. Thinking back, and I've been doing a lot of retrospective review about thinking about that time. I was DHS director, not also IDPH director, and looking at it from safeguarding our clients on the DHS side. And we had a person traveling back from China. And I remember my first phone call with Dr. Padati was thinking about what that looked like. I do think we stood ready because I had that first conversation with Dr. Padati. She knew what she was looking at. She knew what policies to think about and how to safeguard our employees. And she was absolutely thinking about what Iowans needed in those early days.
And now, what was the day you realized, wow, COVID is here and we have to figure out how to deal with this virus?
I think on the day of that first case, right? We knew in the weeks leading up, I remember getting the call from the governor that she was about to announce that we had our first case. And we knew we were ready. We were in SEOC actively planning, and it was time. It was time to go. But we had all dusted off, all agencies had dusted off their continuity of government plans and all of our emergency response plans, and we were ready to go. What I don't think we knew is exactly how extended this would be.
As we learn more about COVID, obviously guidance has changed, and you took over this role in August, but you, I'm sure, sat in on those meetings of, at first, you don't wear a mask, then you do wear a mask. You can get COVID from picking up a to-go container. No, it's not that transmissible on surfaces. So how did that create problems with messaging to the public in terms of public health?
Mm-hmm. It's a huge challenge, right? I think, we've really asked scientists to know more than they've had time to really deeply understand. And then, of course, the public is scared and they're wanting to know information in real time. And there's an insatiable desire to know what's happening. And I understand that. I understand it for myself. I certainly understand that as an administrator, and it's our obligation to provide that information. So we've had to adjust, right? We've had to remain flexible. And we have always, throughout the pandemic, and certainly in my dual role now, we've tried really hard to provide that information in real time, real, accurate, clear information to Iowans. But it is ever changing because we're learning more, and we're learning more every day. And so that's been a balance. We don't want to jump the gun and explain something before we're ready to really explain it and understand it ourselves and understand the impacts it has on Iowans. But I think every day we're evolving and we're getting better.
And now, when you came to Iowa in late 2019, did you ever think today, a year and a half later, you would be director of 2 departments and dealing with a global pandemic?
Gracious, no. Absolutely not. But it's been an incredibly challenging year. I mean, beyond words, never could have imagined that this is what I'd be doing. But at the same time, it's allowed me to understand the connection points between our 2 systems. The pandemic has highlighted in a really tremendous way the fractures that we have in our healthcare delivery system. And so now we get to work on how to fix those.
And back at the beginning of the pandemic, at least from the outside looking in, there were times where it felt like we were barely keeping our head above water when it comes to PPE supplies, testing. What did it feel like on the inside? Take us inside SEOC in some of those early days, what those conversations were like when it was a scramble around the entire country to get these supplies, let alone get them here to Iowa and out the door in a way that is efficient and effective.
So it was all hands on deck. I made phone calls to source PPE. My CFO at DHS she was making phone calls late in the evening, weekends, to source PPE. So it was an all hands on deck effort. Every state agency was engaged. And we were highly coordinated and working on getting supplies into Iowa. I think we did. Ultimately, we were able to. But those were scary times. Not knowing exactly what was happening and really wanting to make sure, for me, I was looking at the residents in our facilities, right? I wanted to make sure that they were safe, that my employees were safe, and we were still able to take care of children in need of assistance and do our work. And so we worked around the clock to make that happen.
And now you kind of alluded to this, but what would you say was the biggest problem early on?
Lack of resources, right? The PPE challenge, and then gaining testing, right? Again, a space where we asked science to catch up with a need and it wasn't quite ready. And so there was a shortage. And when there's a shortage, folks panic a little bit. And so really making sure we were messaging about how to clearly access resources, who needed it and who didn't. And that's certainly evolved over time. And now we're in a space where you can get a test around the corner if you need it. You can even get one at home. We're very close to getting in-home testing available as well. And all of that is a tremendous effort in this country over a really short amount of time.
And now on March 8th, 2020, that's of course the first day that we had our positive test here in Iowa. As just an American society, a free society where government can't tell me what to do, did you ever think we would get to the point where indoor dining would be shut down by a government mandate and schools would be shut down by a government mandate?
Certainly, those are really difficult decisions to make. And I sat in the room with the governor when she made a number of those decisions, and I watched it weigh on her. She's weighing a broader perspective of the reality of how to keep people safe from a health perspective, but also lives and livelihoods, right? The overall well-being of individuals. And those are tremendously difficult decisions to make.
And then a lot of times public health, just from my perspective, is up against the economy. Like, it just seems like those are the two biggest factors when it comes to making these decisions. So how do you take this information to the governor and present it to her and say, we need to do this because of data point X, Y, Z, and if we don't, it doesn't really matter about the economy, like people will die?
Mm-hmm. So it's an effort bringing in a variety of different individuals, and certainly Dr. Padotti is key in that. She's our state medical director, and she's also has a team of epidemiologists who are looking at data points that help guide the governor's decisions. I come at it from a DHS and client services perspective. I'm thinking about it from a broader perspective of overall well-being. Acute health isn't the only space that we need to be thinking about, and so we're constantly thinking about how to balance a health perspective in the overall. And Dr. Padotti is constantly in conversations with hospital administrators, because that's the other key benchmark of making sure that Iowans can access all healthcare needs. And then the governor's looking at the overall again. So it is a conversation, a tough conversation, sometimes long conversations, but I think she's got the right advisors at the table.
Of course, hindsight is 2020, but looking back, is there anything you think that should have been done differently here in Iowa?
I mean, certainly. I think in any emergency response with hindsight, it's always 2020. You're going to look back and think, I wish I had done something different. Our real communications challenges, this insatiable desire to have information in real time while you're working to understand and things are constantly evolving, that has challenged even the best communication experts. And so I would go back and do things a little bit differently. I certainly would. And I think what I could say today is that we are taking those lessons learned every day. And again, trying to re-engineer the way we're communicating to make it easier to understand for Iowans so that they can take the actions they need to protect themselves.
Now tell me a few stories, anything pandemic response related, just something that sticks out in your mind as something behind the scenes that you were a part of.
Sure. So I'll tell you the story that was the hardest for me. It was the day I closed visitation at our facilities. And it was right around a holiday. And I remember telling the parents of our families at Glenwood and Woodward that they wouldn't be able to see their loved ones. And I sobbed uncontrollably while doing it. It's making me a little bit teary while I'm telling you. To tell a parent, I had to do it on the foster care side as well. And to tell a parent that they can't see their child, it's heartbreaking. But it was the right thing to do at the time. We didn't know. I wanted our individuals to be safe. And I had the obligation to protect it. And they understood ultimately. And we lifted it as soon as we could. And now we're making some really good progress on vaccinations. But that was something that was, deeply behind the scenes, but an unbelievably painful and very it deeply rocked me as an administrator and as a parent.
And now I remember way back at the beginning of this, we would leave a press conference one day and hear, okay, we're not closing schools. Then the next day we get brought back, we're closing schools. We're not closing restaurants. We get brought back, we're closing restaurants. Take us inside those discussions of what data were you guys looking at early on? Because back then we really didn't know much. So how do you make those decisions? And do you kind of base it off of the New York models of, okay, we've seen how it's spread over there, we see Italy, what in that we need to act now?
Yeah, there are absolutely, especially in those early days and still today with variants, we're looking at what's happening in other states and other countries and what that spread looks like. Dr. Padotti is absolutely center stage in those conversations, guiding what spread could look like. And by the time it is already closely around us. It's here, we just don't know it yet, right? And so really guiding what that looks like. And then as we've known more, those safety mitigations have become key, right? So we know now we can engage in life like school, which is incredibly important for children, overall well-being, behavioral health needs, support for parents and working parents. We know we can do that safely. So as we've learned more, again, I think back to your question around, remember when people were scrubbing groceries, that now we don't need to do exactly that, but we focus on other mitigation efforts. And so that has become key.
And now this is something, of course, that'll be talked about for generations, the 2020 pandemic. Do you think that this will permanently change how we live and how public health operates? Or once this ends, do you think people have short memories and at least today we'll try to push this out of our minds?
I think it's a balance. I do think it's fundamentally changed us as a society. I absolutely think on the healthcare side of work, health and human services, that we will look back and be able to see a line of demarcation that has changed individuals. I often compare this as, do you remember the tsunami? It looked horrifying rolling in. It looked worse when it rolled back. I don't know that we quite yet know, Rachel, exactly everything that has happened. We know the public health side. That's first and foremost every day, but there's a lot happening on the more human services side of our work that has deeply changed individuals. And I think we're going to be in that recovery stage for a long time. And I think the way we deliver healthcare has fundamentally shifted. Some of that is good, right? Some of those shifts are good. And some of them, I think we're still learning exactly what the impact is.
And now we're talking COVID, but there are still babies that need vaccines that some clinics are not opened up right now, that they can't get vaccinated. There are people that are still having heart attacks. What else are you guys looking at here at the Iowa Department of Public Health to ensure overall well-being of all Iowans?
Yeah, so we're paying a lot of attention to spikes in need for behavioral health services. We're paying a lot of attention to other disease surveillance. That doesn't go away. It certainly has been a challenge on the administrative side to balance it because we've every day been in the middle of an emergency response related to COVID, but always paying attention to the rest of the disease surveillance that the Iowa Department of Public Health does. And absolutely paying attention on the DHS side of things to what that broader healthcare impact looks like.
And now there's critics, of course, that say Iowa hasn't done enough. We haven't done what Michigan has done and continue to lock down the restaurants at 25% capacity. What would you say to them?
I mean, I think it's a balance. Certainly, from the department side, we're looking at metrics. I think we've provided the right information to Iowans to tell them how to be safe. The governor's, again, looking at lives and livelihoods, and there are broader implications to those decisions. But absolutely, I think the information is available and out there so that Iowans can make decisions to protect themselves, and we would tell them to wear a mask.
And right now, everyone is wondering, of course, when can I get a vaccine?
Sure.
Walk me through this rollout process of the vaccine. What bumps did we hit in the road that maybe were unexpected, and what went better than expected?
So stable supply has been the bump in the road, right? So I think I said this at a press conference, it got retweeted. This is the definition of a scarce resource. It's getting better though, and so there absolutely is light at the end of the tunnel, but we had a few bumps early on where our supply increased and then decreased, and that makes planning for clinics incredibly difficult. Key to planning is stability. So I think that's a space where it's been a bit bumpy. Spaces where it's been really bright, go to a vaccine clinic and watch people's reactions. There are tears, right? That's just changing lives. And so I think that is the real spot where it has been a tremendous rollout. We have had phenomenal partners at the local level. So we have 99 local public health entities, and they have done incredible work while they're also doing contact tracing and the rest of their public health efforts. It's been a real partnership.
And then, again, other states are doing things differently. They all vaccinate different, they all test different. Do you think it's more beneficial